The more the merrier, right? With the dongle competition getting more and more aggressive this year as compared to previous year, now it is time for another new competition to be featured in my and the Audiophile dongle madness. And we have here Shanling UA4. Alright, so let's just have a look at the price for this UA4. If you are in Malaysia, you can check out Red Ape Audio. They have a few of these UA4 in stock. And as you can see here in Red Ape Audio Shopee store, this UA4 is priced at 419 Malaysian ringgit, which is equivalent to US dollar 99 internationally, and available in silver or titanium. So let's just have a look at the package and the hardware itself. Okay, so as you can see here, right, this is the box itself. Simple box, and inside you're gonna find this dongle and USB Type-C female cable here. Okay, let's just have a look at the build. I must say that, this is yet another very well designed and elegant looking dongle. Just have a look at the hardware here. It is so neat, so tidy with clean line and everything. And this function button here, which I will show you later, how do they work. And then this USB Type-C female detachable, like this, solid, okay. And becoming a normal standard nowadays, we have this 4.4 mm balance and 3.5 mm single-ended. Okay, so let's just quickly have a look what's the content of this UA4. So, looking at it, one very interesting thing about this UA4 is that I am pretty sure this is the very first ESS Sabre ES9069Q, which is a deck very recently released this year, okay, by ESS Sabre. This ES9069Q is later or more updated version of the same deck used in FIO K9, which is pretty much a top of the range desktop deck. So you can imagine that this UA4 carries the latest technology available in the market right now in this dongle form factor. I have yet to see any other dongle carrying this ESS Sabre deck. And accompanying that deck, it has a dual recore RT6863, which is the analog amplification stage, with the resolution quite good at 768 kHz, 32-bit, and DSD 512 maximum. Alright, so looking at the power rating itself, it is rated at 200 milliwatt of power from the 4.4 mm balance, but I wasn't able to find the information on the 3.5 mm single-ended. But I will touch a bit more on the power and usage later on, okay, after this. And I believe this is also rated at 4 VRMS from the 4.4 mm balance and 2 VRMS on the single-ended. However, the next one, interesting one there, you notice that signal to noise ratio, I put a question mark there. And the reason for that is that simple. I have no idea what is the signal to noise ratio rating for this UA4 because I wasn't able to find it on the website. Okay, if you know anything about it, perhaps you can leave a comment down below. Okay, and this here, other than this middle function button here, we have independent volume adjustment, or I should say flexible volume adjustment, because you can tune this, which I will show it to you afterward. So let's just have a look at the feature itself quickly. Okay, in order to do that, I'm just going to attach to my phone here so that I can show you. Right, it boots up immediately. Okay, you can see that. All right, so you can immediately see the screen is quite generous. Okay, the LED itself, it was able to show me this UAC2 filter, high and low gain and everything. So in order to operate this, pretty much very simple, straightforward. This middle button here serves as the function button. Press it long, and then the first screen you'll be given is the gain level, which is high and low. Normally I always run on high. Okay, select like that, and then you have filter. And this UA4 provides 7 different type of filter, sound filter. Anything from, let's just have a look. Okay, go through one by one. Okay, linear phase slow roll off, maximum phase fast roll off, and all the way to 7 here, which is minimum phase slow roll off. low dispersion, right? And 0 is pretty much NOS, okay? So, depending on what type of partner you attach to this UA4, okay, that will decide the sort of filter that you want to use. For example, as a rule of thumb, I always mention this, for something which is relatively bright or already fast sounding, you would want to try slow roll-off filter. But something which is neutral, it is always better to use NOS, no oversampling. Or if you have a warmer sounding partner, it is always a good idea to pace up the the rhythm of the sound itself or the presentation of the sound using fast roll-off filter. Okay, again, just gonna press long, right? And you're gonna see here the key mode for volume. You would notice that there's 3 options here. The button volume, which I mentioned earlier, being flexible. Okay, when you select deck volume, it operates in independent volume adjustment, which is 100 step. Okay, and if you select system volume, this is quite interesting. It will act like a remote controller for the host volume adjustment. So you control the volume on the host, not the deck itself. And you can also change it to purely just track up, track skip forward or backward or things like that, which means that you can now have play, pause, forward and backward button, okay? Out of the box here, when I had first listened to it, I was already impressed. Impressed because, you know, when I attach it to my Atimotic ER2XR here, and also this Tangim Zero 4.4mm balance, both IM being highly transparent and scalable, and relatively neutral or close to being neutral. The sort of sound that I'm hearing from this Shanling UA4 is something which I would consider as being polished, mature, and very well balanced throughout the entire frequency range, anywhere from upper frequency to mid-range to lower frequency. It is definitely, I would classify as being linear neutral. There's no hint of coloration, no attempt of adding, boosting, enrichment, or reduction of sound frequency, anywhere from upper, mid-range to lower frequency. So if you're looking for something which is transparent in neutral, I can guarantee you that UA4 is one of the best dongle to look for. Okay, so let's just talk about the sound itself, the way it presents the sound. Okay, if you are familiar with ESS Sabre, and like I mentioned earlier, this UA4 comes with ES9069 latest ESS Sabre deck. The good thing about that deck is that it does not exhibit the kind of, you know, typical ESS Sabre brightness or even glare. And some people would even classify it as Pina glare. In particular, the upper mid-range all the way to the treble being highly energetic and borderline offensive, at least depending on which perspective you are looking at. To some people who love the sort of analytical approach to the sound, being highly detailed with macro and micro dynamics, with macro and micro details, right? Crisp and clean sort of sound, this UA4 definitely has it. However, the good thing about it is that, you know, the manner of how it presented. For example, let's just recap back the previous releases of Shanling UA series, especially the UA5 and also UA3. And I must admit, I wasn't that too impressed with UA5 and UA3 because UA3 is in fact not ESS Sabre, okay? UA3 is running on AKM, but somehow it sounded like ESS Sabre. And the reason that I'm saying that is that because especially UA5, it sounded outright sterile, lean, and dry. And that UA3 is just being analytical, but, you know, somehow lacking that element of being organic. But when I listen to this UA4, I am happy to say that, you know, that element of being digital sounding, sterile sounding does not exist or almost non-existent in this UA4. And the keyword here is almost. Why I'm saying that is because I still feel that despite the relatively very well balanced now between that analytical and musical approach, this UA4 still sounded like ESS Sabre, at least to my ear, especially when I attach it to this Kinera Idun Golden here. This IEM, the reason that I use this IEM to test dongle is that because it is so very transparent. this Xperia Idun Golden does not exhibit any kind of coloration on itself. Okay, what you hear is what you get from the deck, and the sound that I'm getting from this combination of these two is that, first, super transparent, like I say, well balanced, non-offensive, no pinna glare that I would consider as being offensive to my ear. But it is still ESS Sabre sort of sound, which means that it borders or favors a bit more of hi-fi sort of sound tuning. So what you're gonna get is that something which is, like I say again, crisp sounding, clean sounding. But while doing that, it also sacrifices a bit of some other element. For example, when I compare with the rest of the other dongle which I have, and I have so many, right? I feel that, in the midst of being clean and clear sounding, this UA4 seems to be lacking a bit on the element of air. So meaning that the way it flow from the different sound frequency, different, level of high, low, and mid-range itself, and the timbre balance itself is somewhat lacking air. Now let's have a look at some of the technical aspect of this Shanling UA4, starting with the soundstage itself. Okay, so when I attach it to different partners here, especially this HIDIS MP145 and also this Final Audio A5000, two of my favorite. The reason that I love them so much because they are some of the widest sounding IM which I had in my collection. Okay, I would say that this is fairly wide open sounding, and the keyword focus more a bit on being open rather than wide. Okay, the good thing is that it does not exhibit that traditional or typical sort of tall and narrow soundstage which I have heard from previous iteration of ESS Sabre, and I am happy to say that at least ES9069Q is definitely more open sounding than the predecessor. The good thing about it is that while doing that, openness to the sound itself, it is also very holographic. Yes, the way it present the staging itself, it was so effortless to track different sound source, different sort of instrument, with clean layering and separation. This Shanling UA4 is definitely a monster detail, okay, when it comes to resolution. When attached to this, especially like IEM, like this Xperia Idun Golden, HIDIS MP145, Final Audio A5000, and this Etimotic ER2XR, the sort of sound that I'm getting from this UA4, like I mentioned earlier, is very analytical. For example, the way it extract out the macro detail first, all right, and also the micro detail. I am hearing every bit of detail which is available in the recording itself. The higher the resolution, the more I am hearing, especially DSD file format. Okay, so for example, when I listen to Diana Krall or even Alison Krauss, their song typically contains a lot of subtle nuances, subtle details. Shanling UA4 was able to extract them all out, with crisp definition, sharp imaging. As for usage itself, this Shanling UA4, when attached to my phone here, which is Xiaomi Mi 90, running 4000 mAh of battery, in USB exclusive mode, driving this 32 ohm Tanjil Zero, was able to score a respectable 9 hours of runtime before it drains out the battery from 100%. When I attach this Shanling UA4 to my PC here, which is running on USB PD 3.0, high power, okay, when I enable independent volume adjustment, I set it to max. I adjust the volume only on my PC. The sort of volume that I'm getting is surprisingly, I needed only 18 out of 100 to drive this Fostech T40 RP MK3. That is crazy, I tell you. It is not even 20, it is 18 out of 100. I was so surprised that this UA4 to offer that such high power output from this 4.4mm balance. And even when I switch over to the 3.5mm single-ended, the volume needed was at around 24 out of 100. That is super crazy because if I were to compare this against like iBasso DC04 Pro here, or even Colorfly CDA M1P, which I reviewed recently, all these are 4 VRMS rated dongle. Both of these two would require volume level of 28 out of 100 to match the loudness of this, which is running on 18. So this is practically 10 points higher when it comes to loudness itself. Crazy, right? But there's a caveat to it, all right? So what I'm trying to say is that I suspect that the implementation of the amplifier stage on this UA4 is somewhat over-engineered to a point that when you try to push the volume higher, and that volume rate that I mentioned to you just now was in accordance to my listening sensitivity, okay? And I do know that some people that I know, would require double that kind of loudness in order to have proper listening level to them. So there's a lot of headroom there, as it suggests, okay? But then again, how usable is that headroom? For example, when I try to push up the volume higher than 20, up to 24 even, then I started to hear micro distortion, okay, even from this Fostec T40 RPMK3. So despite having huge sort of headroom, I'm not sure how high or how usable the high volume is, okay, the loudness itself. So we are talking about quality here, because something which is relatively lower powered like this Hebe FC6 would exhibit, you would need to crank the volume almost like 90%. But then again, when you reach that listening level loudness, the sort of headroom that you get is very usable, wholesome, and in fact, very engaging. But I cannot use this Shanling UA4 beyond 20, because otherwise you would feel that it is kind of like the sound itself becoming stressed. The glare is there to the sound dynamic itself. You see there? Rating and comparison of this Shanling UA4 against the rest of the competition in dongle madness. There's so many dongles there, not all of them obviously, and I have managed to squeeze in as much as this in a single screen. Those are all top performer in dongle madness. And let's just have a look at Shanling UA4. Very respectable at 90 out of 100. And I have already compared that against UA5. It is very clear to see that this UA4 is a better performer when compared to Shanling UA5. Let's have a look there quickly when it comes to sound itself. Definitely when it comes to dynamic presentation, perfect 10 for this UA4 as compared to 9 from UA5. And the most apparent improvement would be on the tone and timbre, moving from 7 to 8, but not significant enough to a point that, because I feel there's still an element of that Sabre sort of sound signature to the timbre itself, okay? But at least it improved a lot on sound richness. It does not sound as dry or as flat as UA5. At the same time, it is still neutral enough, okay? And technicalities, no doubt about it, okay? This is one of the best that you can expect when it comes to technicalities, on par with the rest of the top performer of dongle madness. And driving power, only 9. Why not 10? You might be asking, despite having so much power as I described earlier. Because I have to factor in the element of that headroom, okay, of how much of that headroom being usable. You squeeze it a bit too high, then it started to get offensive. So that factor in, despite having huge amount of power, I feel that there's not much of that power being usable. Okay, synergy factor, perfect 9. Volume management, perfect 9. 100 step, no brainer there. And features, this is without a doubt among the very best in the market right now when it comes to features that you can expect from a dongle. The only dongle that was able to score perfect 10 when it comes to features is just iFi Goba, as you can see there. Alright, so let's just talk about some comparison with the recent competition in the market. I have just reviewed this iBasso DC06 Pro few days ago, okay? In a way, both of them are ESS Sabre, both of them for VRMS, both of them running on this multiple deck sort of configuration. In fact, this is quad deck, this is single deck but with dual amplification. Sound signature pretty much similar, both of them, but I would say that DC06 Pro has even bolder presentation to the way it presents the detail itself, the macro dynamic especially. So what I was saying is that if you want something which is stronger with the way it presents the dynamic, DC06 Pro has it, okay? But in the process of doing that, DC06 Pro also sound a bit more digital sounding. iBasso DC04 Pro, very popular. I know a lot of people are going to be asking me, right? Between these two, UA4 and DC04 Pro, which one I would prefer more? And I'm just going to put it up front. as bluntly as possible, I still prefer DC04 Pro. And why, you might be asking? First, the soundstage of this DC04 Pro is still the widest among many. It is only equal by Cayenne RU7, Luxury&Precision W4, and also THX Onyx, okay? Where else, the rest of the other dongle are pretty much like normal sounding soundstage, including this UA4. And another element is that, I did mention earlier, when it comes to the way they present the sound itself, right? The layering, the separation, the staging, this DC04 Pro offer a bit more of air, a lot more air in fact, compared to this crispy sounding presentation of UA4. So you're gonna have to ask yourself this question: which one do you prefer more? You know, crispy, clean, sharp edge presentation, or airy sort of smooth presentation between these two? Okay. This is how it looked like. Shanling UA4 on the Timbre Signature table. As you can see there, alright, it edges very close towards hi-fi territory for the fact that despite being very well balanced, I still feel that the tuning itself focus a lot more on being analytical rather than musical. It is still amply musical if you compare it to iBasso DC06 Pro or even iBasso DC03 Pro, or especially even W4 or even M15, which is highly hi-fi sort of analytical sound. In contrast, something like Colorfly CDA M1P is the exact opposite. Okay, so that is how it compares against the rest of the competition in Dongle Madness. All in all, everything considered, this Shanling UA4, without a doubt, you know, with the build feature it offers, the quality of the build, the sound it offers, the feature itself, the flexibility of synergy between different type of partner, this is definitely one of the best money can buy this year in 2023 at 100 US dollar, give and take, okay? The way I look at it, holding it in my hand right now, I do not believe that this thing is priced at 100 US dollar. It felt more like 200 US dollar and more. Especially when you listen to it, the versatility of the sound itself, the presentation. This is one of the most technical and competent dongle that you can find in the market now.